Hello, Scalamancy, Utopians, and of course the Darkly Courts. I'd like to welcome you to a segment or mini-series I want to do called Take 3. It's basically a segment about player identity, character fantasy, and kind of me building around these ideas in the future for gaming that I do. I'm planning on 3 videos in the series. This is the first one. I'm calling it Help Me Choose the Colors of My Army. Unique, original name, I know. But the idea is I'm taking a couple games, talk about player fantasy, or player identity and character fantasy in those games. I'm kind of doing these as short, film through, I figure out what I want to do later with them. But the first thing we're going to talk about game-wise is Age of Sigmar. I have been playing Games Workshop games since 3rd edition 40k. Shortly after 3rd edition switched over, or 2nd switched over to 3rd, I joined in. And I believe I started Orcs and I switched to Chaos very quickly. I actually have both Chaos Codexes hidden away somewhere in this apartment. But I also tried, Warhammer Fantasy Battles 6th edition. And years later, when I got back into the game, I got back in via Age of Sigmar with my Skaven. I love my Skaven, but that's not who I am now. That army strategy and stuff just doesn't fit me, as well as what I'm going to talk about today, the character fantasy and player identity, doesn't fit me anymore, but this army does. I really like the concept of this book. I think this is my favorite fantasy army I've seen. I like the fantasy of a bunch of like-minded races getting together, protecting these cities that, be them good or bad, it doesn't really matter in their cause. They are defending their home. Or, attacking others. But still, that's the idea of war games. So, I just got myself, or a friend of mine actually got this for me, about a week ago. I've been reading through it. I've been playing a Cities of Sigmar army for a while. I'm getting a few kits in soon. 2 for it. It took me a while to figure out what city I want. I still don't 100% know. And that's kind of where we're going. We're going to push through things a little bit today. Now, my plan is I do really want to focus a little bit on mages. My friends gave me the Hurricanum or Lumnarch, I'm not sure how I'm going to build it yet, and the Battle Mage kit. I really like the Collegia Arcanum, that's where I'm going to start. So the first and probably most obvious thought was, let's build Howlheart. Pardon me? Or let's build Hollowheart. Sorry, some of the words are harder for me to say. I know it's an easy word to say, but bear with me. But as I was reading through things, my wife has a character on army from when we first got back into the hobby, before we switched to 40k, now we're switching back. I thought about doing Tepside Keep, so I could just use some of those models to highlight some tactics. I like the hit and run in there. But when I was originally looking at Cities of Sigmar, I really liked Living City. I have a huge fascination with the character fantasy of the nature mage, or the nature faction. I love the idea of civilization, nature existing together. It's who I am. As a person, I grew up around woods. I grew up in the country. I just have this huge appreciation for nature. So I like stuff like tree folk, and I love dryads, and I love all that stuff. So Sylvaneth was a big draw for me to play Cities of Sigmar, if that makes sense. Also, I love the Wanderers. The other one that was tempting for me, I'm giving 4 cities here, is Greywater Fastness. I'm having a hard time deciding between those 4. The reason why with Greywater Fastness is I like the concept of the Iron-Willed Arsenal as well. And I kind of want to have a good good basis around the Collegiate. I also want to bring in a basis around Iron-Willed. Beyond that, for battle line and stuff, I've thought of Shadowblade, I thought of Wanderers. Both kind of hit my flavor of what I like. Now, what does this have to do with any of the topic of character identity or player fantasy? Well, I kind of mentioned there with my growing up and, out in the country, growing up pretty deep into the woods, actually. The house I grew up in was surrounded by woods on all sides, and we had quite a long driveway that I had to walk every morning to go to school, or to get picked up by the bus, but I really appreciated nature. A lot of my childhood was exploring those woods and the orchards around it and stuff. And I always liked the idea of a city that just blends in with the woods. And that's why living city was tempting. Now, that being said, it seems like that's the choice, right? Well, not really. I also like the concept of using our faults as a strength, which I think, in my opinion, Greywater Fastness kind of does. They use their pollution as magic. I mean, they got smog magic, which just fascinates me. I wouldn't be able to take Sylvaneth, but at the same time, I could really play into the whole Ironweld Arsenal, Collegia Arcanum, and then just take either my Wanderers or my Shadowblades for my general and 2 or 3 battle line, pardon me. Either way, I could have some fun with this. So we know we're going to be in the realm of Gira. We got that figured out. So what's my character fantasy here? Well, as I'm doing this, I am going to pull colors out that I think will fit. I think the centerpiece of my army is going to be my Hero Kingdom. And how I want to do that is, instead of doing like a full solid color for the cart, I want to make it look more wooden. So, I'm going to pull out some dried bark. And Baneblade Brown is actually the color I was looking for. So, this is just me choosing my palette, because I like to have my palette chosen ahead of time. On top of that, I have paint in like 3 different areas. So if you see me bending over to grab more, that's because I got paint down here too. I want to kind of give a brassy feel or a coppery feel to my metal in some cases. So grabbing this one because that's the wrong color. Pardon me, I got like 20 million Balthazar golds. Here it is. So I thought about it. This is one of my favorite paints I never use. Using Screaming Bell for like metal details other than armor. This is going to blend with the kind of my color choices I'm thinking of. And of course, on top of that, I'm going to use some Typhon Corrosion, and to highlight that is not the right color. Well, Typhon Corrosion, and highlight that, the Rise of Rust, which is meant to go with the Typhon Corrosion. This is going to kind of give it a worn look, especially my Hurricanum, making it look like a cart that's gone through the woods many times between different cities. So, the character fantasy I want to do is the nature mage that uses these tools of war, that uses the cannons, that uses the big guns, that uses the carts and stuff. But I haven't chosen a city between the two. I think how I want to approach this, because I have 2 character fantasies in mind that both fit with me as a player, my player identity. I like playing defensive, I like playing drawn back, let the enemy come to me, then come around and engulf them. Now, so both cities kind of fit my playstyle. I love smog effects or fog effects because I can cover the ground I'm in. Or I can cover and screen myself. And then I love, something that doesn't come up in the game. I really love dots and stuff like that as well. I do like nature magics, but not in the way that the leaves, or the discipline of leaves, or whatever it's called, plays off for me. You know, and this goes into the player identity. I like spells that can more interact with that, have more of a direct interaction with what I do. Like I pull up the fog screen or I blast soot in their face. That's where Grey Water Fastness is actually winning in this. Sorry, something in my throat. So, where I can't decide between the two, I had an idea, and I've been debating this all day. Where the yellow is in Grey Water Fastness, I'm going to switch out for green. That way, I can play both if I want, build one, and if I don't like it, play as the other. So for my my blue areas, I'm going to use these two. You know, we're looking at Calidor Sky and Lothran Blue. Calidor Sky, of course, is going to be the base of the blue. I'm going highlighting Lothran, giving it kind of like a really nice raised, silky look. Then I'm going to bring in the greens, and my wife has one of the palettes kind of taken, so I'm kind of like working around her palette as well as ones we put to the side. Why don't I just keep this up here? I want to play off Lauren Forest, so it's kind of like an olive green, and a Warpstone Glow. Now ultimately what this is going to do is give me a very, like, my goal is to have this very thinking army. Like in player or character fantasy, the army's going to be led by a mage whose whole idea is they are leading the army through precise thought and defense. You know, your defense being your offense. You know, so it's going to come from the mage, cogsmith, all that, sitting back with the arsenal, but creating pathways for my stuff I want to move forward to move. So I'm going to take a soul bridge. I'm going to take a spell portal as well. I'm thinking of taking Penumbrum Engine. If I'm wrong in wanting to do that, let me know, because I looked at it, I liked it, but I don't know enough about 2nd edition Age of Sigmar. I haven't played since the 1st to really know if that's useless, you know, if that's a waste of 90 points. But it's been in the list I've been working on. As far as weapons go, yes, we got the Screaming Bell, but I also want to use a little bit of Lead Belcher, of course. Lead Belcher is like the ultimate color. And my brain just died. As well as doing details and like a few other things. Like for bones, and I'll get into this a little more, I have a bone formula I use every time. 4 paints. That's not it. It's 3 paints today. I could do it with 3 or 4, but I can't seem to find the actual. It should be up here. We might be out. Oh, no, there it is. I like to start with Rackruth. And then I do a layer of Scrag Brown. I had to remember the name. Into Baylor Brown. I get lighter coatings on my brush per, like, it gets closer and closer to dry brush. And then I go with Ushapti Bone on top. And gives the bones these in-depth colors. Also takes me like an hour to paint a single skeleton. That's why I stopped trying to make a Nagash army. I did buy some Nagash. I painted 2 models. It took me like 4 hours for 2 models. And I realized it was a Horde army, and maybe down the road. But this should give us a nice, you know, if you look at the top, a nice fall feel to the colors, a nice woody feel. And I think this will actually work well. Now, you know, we're going to add in the Kiss of Flesh, because even if I'm using darker skin tones on some people or some of the models, I can use Scrag Brown and Kiss of Flesh together. But, you know, I can do a couple of different mixtures to get the colors I want. And then, of course, everyone's addiction. I gotta find the right one. Known oil. Because, you know, how many of us overuse known oil? Right? The only other thing I can think of that I want to say for the colors is I want to use, I have to get the right, actually, yeah, that looks right. For my honored retinue, I'm going to use Screamer Pink on the cloaks. And then the depth of the cloaks, I will use Corn Red. This is going to give me a kind of like, I want that velour look to it. Just notice like half my wife's color palette is in there. She's gonna be so mad at me. But anyways, so I think this is gonna be my army. As I discuss this, I'm finding that I am actually liking the idea of the Ironwood Arsenal more with this. And it fits my fantasy more. Now, I'm a naturey person, so the idea of playing a industrial city that's polluting the realm of life kind of hits me hard. But at the same time, you know, the destruction around it was done to take care of the Ghoulmire beastmen. And it does suffer raids, and it is what's basically equipping the whole army. I am going to run Hollow Knight still for the Stormkeep, I think, or the Stormcast, I think. Maybe I don't remember what it was for the, or for Greywater Fastness for their knights. But I kind of like Hollow Knights, or for their Stormcast, I mean. I don't know what Stormkeep is for Greywater. But I saw something where someone used rust on some of the stomach area of the armor. And then just silver. And then instead of blue, I'm doing the green for the shoulder pads to kind of fit with the foresty theme. Now that gets into, you know, as we mentioned, player fantasy. The fantasy I am going with this is, you know, using the force as a tool. I like the smog magic. I kind of think using your situation around you really fits what I want to play off of in this army. And also it uses all the units I want. And if I added Wanderers or Shadow Blades, it still makes sense being Giron. And also all of the cities kind of incorporate all the races. One thing I want to do is those Legion of Nagash models I mentioned. I want to make a mercenary contingent in the colors of the Son of the Lich Master. And my Necromancer, for instance, is right here. Because we're doing narrative. He's going to be in the colors of the army. Now, if I was doing Living City, I'm still going to paint these guys up. But I have the Underworlds, Sylvaneth thing from Beastgrave. But I think I'm going to pass up on that. I think the Necromancer would be cool. I'm also going to eventually get a Kraken Eater. Just in case. Because I like the idea of having these mercenaries come in and help you move war machines. Move, you know, like your battlements and stuff. You know, give me some skeletons put in the front line while I'm shooting from behind. So that goes into, what does this mean for me as a player? Where is my player identity in here? You know, as I said, I like characters who think. I like defensive characters. That's kind of why I play when I enter into a game. I always dump stats in intelligence. Then I always make sure I have a shield and long-range weaponry or a polearm to keep people away. And so the idea of running ordnance just fits. And I just saw my videos just got too large. Okay. But also I like the idea of running magic a lot too, which I mentioned there. I like the idea of being from the realm of nature. I can play with that still a little bit, even though I'm playing like the industrial city. I think I have some fun stuff I could do with the bases and stuff, like, you know, like the Deadwood kind of basis stuff. So we got a cool idea. And this is pretty much concludes that first little video I want to do of this. Next up, I will talk about D&D and Magic. I mean, I'm not sure what order I'm uploading these, but hopefully you all enjoyed this and continue the conversation to the next one. I'll see y'all later. I love you, and bye.